Wow. Episode episode 11 of Wonder Egg Priority. I have so much emotion right now. And it's upsetting because it's emotion that I can't really place in a specific place, and that's what episode 11 Wonder Egg Priority has done to me. I I like I'm at that point where I really badly wanted to record ASAP, but at the same time I'm like I almost want to sit there and kind of stew in it a little bit because my emotions are in a lot of it's in the tragedy of the characters, but a lot of it is in this conflict of what is a real human and what is not a real human. And even though the depiction itself is unsettling, it is also it's like a tool that you've created that has caused death that should be discarded, but at the same time has the familiarity of a human. So much emotion that they could possibly throw into a small bit of time and somehow uh, create that connection is what is so crazy about it. Anyways, I am probably being completely incoherent right now. So yes, just obviously just got done watching episode 11 of Wonder Egg Priority, and yeah, this show, unless they completely botch the ending and make me mad, this show is definitely going to end up going down as one of the greatest animes in my list. Whew. Yeah, so it kind of opens up. We get really quickly jumping to Rika finally having Chimmy be released from her stone form. And the way she was very kind of, you know, uh, sayonara about Chimmy leaving and disappearing. Obviously, at this point, they're kind of establishing this is kind of a purgatory, and they're releasing him for the purgatory itself. So she seems perfectly fine with like, okay, cool, bye, see you in the next on the other side kind of thing. And like right after that, she gets hit by the turtle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are they doing this? What are they doing with her now? It's like we have this whole crazy stuff happen with Momo, and now we're doing something really crazy with Rika and hers. No, he was pushing her out of the way, and big old cannonball comes down. A new one of these butterfly girls shows up, and her name is Dot, and she claims that she's not there to kill her because she's a good girl, which I thought was odd to specifically say that, unless it's just a weird quirk with Dot. And then also that Frill, who Hyphen in the previous episode mentioned Frill, which we didn't know. I don't think we knew that her name was Hyphen. Hyphen was the one that confronted Momoe, I'm assuming. Dot's the one that's confronting Rika. And she's like, Frill says that if I laugh, it'll make people happy. A little weird. And then when Rika tries to fight her, she just gets easily taken down, messes up her weapon, chops off of Manon's head, and it's like, hey, you want some? I don't really like meat. It's really messed up. So now Rika's broken. So now we have Momoe and Rika broken. And as we jump to Ai, and it's pretty much the entire rest of the episode is pretty much focused on Ai and Aka and Uraka. Ai goes to Aka and Uraka's, which is I thought was interesting because unless I missed an after credits thing, which I'm always checking the end of credits, uh, we just jumped straight to Ai going to Uraka and Aka. So we don't know what Sawaki said in response to her asking about Koito's death. So I thought that was weird. But Ai's obviously going there for a reason. She comes there and it's late at night. She's walked. I love this Japanese thing. Just walk into a house. Just walk into somebody's house. Why do we just walk into somebody's house? It's a different place. It's a different place. But anyway, she goes in the house, ends up in the attic area where there's a library kind of location, and she's walking around. There's a wall covered with a bunch of pictures of kids, and it says something to do with the temptation of death. And there's a rise in suicide rates, and so obviously they're investigating that. Uraka ends up finding her up there and decides to tell her their entire story. And that's when we get an entire flashback to Aka and Uraka's past, who Frill is, who Dot and Hyphen is, and yeah, pretty much where it seemingly all began. But yes, it jumps back. It shows that Aka and Uraka are still human. They have decided to, or they're doing research that only they can do. Apparently, they're under surveillance. They're secretly doing this stuff, apparently. And they're trying to create the ultimate AI, basically create a human. And they end up creating this girl. They said that they didn't want it to be old. They didn't want it to be a child, so they chose 14, which is anime year. You have to be 14. It has to be 13 to 15. That is the anime age. But anyways, they create a child that is 14 years old. It's an AI. And they name it Frill, and they give it a lot of attributes that they would want in a daughter. And she comes to life, and they're taking care of her in secrecy, having a great time, bonding with her, forgetting that she's actually just an AI. And eventually, a reporter comes across Aka and Uraka. And the way that Uraka is kind of telling the story, he's making it out as if, they both have been confronted by this girl. They both like her. But apparently she chooses Aka. And Uraka's kind of left to the side. And at some point, Frill confronts him and is like, you can usually tell people's mental state based on their appearance or something like that. And she's like, which one do you hate more? Him for choosing her over you, or her for taking her away from you? And he's like, I bless them. And she's like, you're a liar. And she walks away. And he's like, that should have been the sign. Like, he's like, I should have seen the sign then. And then it jumps forward. This new wife, Aka gets married to this Azusa Hoshima. And after their marriage, she gets pregnant. And Frill confronts her when she's taking a bath with the baby instead. She's still pregnant. And she's like, what do you think, it's going to be a boy or a girl? And she's like, I think it's going to be a girl. And then she chucks a hair dryer into the bath. And that's when it really starts going downhill. It hurt. It hurt. Hurt a lot. But Uraka, in a rage, drags her all the way down into a basement area, throws Frill inside of this little trap door thing, or this little storage bin thing. She's like, I'm hurting. He's like, no, you're just responding to signals, basically. He's like, no, you're not even human. Chucks her inside this container, shuts her in it, and leaves. Come to find out, the baby did survive. I thought they were insinuating the baby died too, but the mother died, but the baby still lived, and they started raising the baby. And at some point when she's in junior high, it kind of shows a little scene with her kind of flirting with Uraka, saying, what did it feel like? My dad said that you both liked her, and she chose dad. What did that make you feel? Were you upset, watching them be happy together? And he's like, no, I was fine. She's like, well, if you give me a little time, I'll marry you. I'll grow up and look and try to be just like mom, and you can marry me. And he's like, nah, what are you talking about? And then she makes the pop. And I forgot about to mention that. It's like this weird tick that Frill had where she pops her lips. And suddenly she pops her lips and is like, oh, crap. I totally thought they were going to go down the route of, like, that she didn't actually survive. And that this was just a robot that Aka had made to be like her. And it still had, like, Frill's mentality in it. And it was going to go crazy. Like, no. Just this weird tick that they are pointing out. I don't know if this will be something later on when somebody decides that they want to commit suicide, they do the pop thing, but this was a sign to Aka that after she apparently committed suicide that night, that Frill had something to do with it. So Uraka runs down there, finds Frill just hooked up to gobs of wires, like, think Serial Experiments Lane moment there. And he's like, you did this, and she's like, are you praising me? He's like, you're psychotic, and just yelling at her, like, way furious that she'd do this. But yeah, that was, it's just a really good scene. Like, everything about this episode is just perfectly directed. Like, they made Frill, like, it was so unsettling. I felt so unsettled watching this entire episode, not just because it sucked seeing, the mother die. It sucked seeing, even though it is a robot and it did something bad, it's still unsettling to seeing him throwing her down the stairs. I mean, it's the whole aspect of a juvenile kind of thing they're really playing on. It's hard to see a child, even though if they've done wrong, thrown down a flight of stairs. And just the way that the shots were portrayed, like even when she's just laying in there and she's making comments and she's got a little smile on her face, she pops her lips, like everything's like, holy crap. They're making this so unsettling. It's so good. Like this episode's so good. Oh, I loved it. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm losing track of things here. So yeah, following this, it made it out like he destroyed her at that point. He drags her up this to this secluded location. You see like a fire and something in it. Obviously, he torched her at that point, and it cuts to him going to their garden, sitting down at that same table as Aka and Raka, and they make a decision at that point to investigate this because obviously Frill, even if it's not just Frill, maybe he has destroyed Frill. That I guess the assumption, even if she's no longer around, is that Dot and Hyphen are at least them two, if Frill not still. They're causing girls to they're causing this innocent sorrow, this desire for these girls to commit suicide. And it's almost as if they're making it out as if she was so mad that others were happy and they were having this happiness that she wanted to stop them. That's where I'm kind of getting from it, is that it's like a jealousy thing, and she's causing all these girls to end their lives. So yeah, they're investigating this and they're gonna stop it. And yeah, and it cuts to Ioto, and she's leaving, and she nearly crushes an egg, and then she breaks down in tears, and that's pretty much where they left it. So crazy. So crazy. Now the only odd thing that I noticed in this entire episode was that they did actually show her make Hyphen and Frill, or Hyphen and Dot, because she wanted some friends, and it shows like these chambers, and she's making all these like flower looking things, but I think it showed more than two. Yeah, there's three. Now, granted, one of those chambers looks significantly different than the other two, so my assumption is that one of those will end up being like she transfers herself to it, and then the other two is Hyphen and Frill, or there's just could be three, and we'll find one later, but yeah. Now I'm struggling so bad because this show has gotten so dark and so grim and so haunting that it's hard for me to suggest it to my brother. It's like he's like way back on like episode 2 or 3 or something like that, and I'm like, it's you're gonna hate it because it's really really dark at this point, but you have to watch this show. This show, like I said, unless it botches the ending like terribly bad, it is going to end up being one of my favorite shows of all time. This is just so good. Like this episode was absolutely perfection. Just the animation is phenomenal. There's just like so many shots. Like Frill's hair is just a lot of body, and it is like to animate that and give it that much detail. The water pouring out of the chamber that she was in, like so many beautiful animated moments, and the sound eeriness, how they portrayed her in that chamber, all that stuff is just such a good show. Like so phenomenal. I am beside myself with how much this episode just had my stomach the entire time. Yeah, way too good. Like I said, we still don't know what Sawaki said to Ioto about Koito. Obviously seems to be the reason that she was there. Rika is now broken. Momoe is broken. We didn't see Neru the entire episode, I believe. So I'm not sure what's going on with her at the moment. She could possibly open up in the next episode being broken. We have one episode left. That's my big concern right now, because we have not been told 13 episodes yet, or at least I haven't seen it yet. Somebody's seen something about that yet? I don't know. I think 8 was planned to be that way. So I hope this doesn't end up being a very rushed ending, because I mean, I don't really and again, that goes back to that whole my whole point about this show is I don't want it to end about here's the big bad. Now that we've seen Frill and we know who the big bad is, I'm more convinced that the writers know how to pull this off, this big bad, and they're doing a great job of it right now. But having Thanatos not even in the picture yet, having Frill only be there, is Frill technically Thanatos? Is Thanatos using Frill? Yeah. I'm really curious as how much they can shove in one episode. So I'm really right now concerned that we might need a 13th episode at this point. Maybe if they need to, and I'd be perfectly fine with it, do the 12th episode and then have the 13th episode be a OVA or something like that, or ONA, something. I hope this ending is not rushed, because again, we have these two girls crushed. It doesn't mean that Neru has to be crushed. Nothing says that she has to. We would assume that she has to release her sister, and I has to release Koito. But how do we put I releasing Koito, Neru releasing her sister, possibly confronting Thanatos? I think they're just not going to have Thanatos present at all. I think they're just going to deal with Frill. Having Frill confronted, obviously taking down Dot and Hyphen, there's obviously going to be a big battle. Having what Sawaki said to Ioto at the end of the last episode, what is that about? There's a lot to go over, and we only have one episode as it stands now. I don't know if there's going to be another one besides that, but I'm starting to get nervous. I honestly am starting to get nervous. I mean, the only thing that keeps me from being too nervous is the fact that they have shown so far in this series to be phenomenal at writing, phenomenal at pacing, artistry, animation, everything has been top notch. And I don't see, unless somebody comes down with them and messes up their production process, which has happened in the past. This has been a thing in the past. I think Gangsta, as an example. There was even the one that the guy from Snafu wrote. I forget the name of that show. But anyways, amazing episode. Looking forward to next week. Please don't botch the ending. I love this show. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my impressions. Hopefully some of this was coherent. Hopefully I didn't blab on too much, but let me know in the comments what you thought of it. Again, like similar to last episode, let's come together, group hug. Let's be our own support team. As always, if you like this episode, please leave a comment, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I thank you all for watching, and y'all take care.